Good day, everyone, and welcome to the first Council and Committee meeting for the year 2019. And I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised. And for those in attendance, everyone, I would ask that you ensure that your phones or communication devices are silenced so you're not disturbing the procedure for the meeting or embarrassing yourselves when the phone goes off. And just a couple points of clarification. Last time when I chaired the Council and Committee meeting, it was pointed out to me through some emails that some of the councilors were not going through the chair when they wanted to address the deputation or staff. So if you could please, your procedure would be to go through the chair, okay? And we'll keep moving on here. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest with respect to the agenda items this evening? Don't see any, Madam Clerk. And let's see here. I do have one change in the agenda, and as requested by Community Services staff, and it's a closed session item. That is item 7A. Wishing for that to be deferred to the next appropriate council meeting, which will allow for completion of the surplus lands public process. And can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Councilor Geisens, mover. Councilor Martin, seconder. Call the vote. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we will move to the consent items. And it is in our agenda here, and if any member of council wishes to discuss a consent item and or ask questions upon it, please identify so now, and we will move it to the specified location under staff reports, discussion items. Okay. Anybody have a concern with the consent item as listed on the agenda? That is staff report HSS 19-03, Norview Lodge Long-Term Care Accountability Planning Submission. If anybody wishes to discuss that or comment, it would have to be pulled as a consent item and moved. Okay, if I don't see anybody with their hand up, can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Michele. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now, we'll move to deputations, and I will first call on Ms. Judy Maxwell. She is the General Manager, Secretary, Treasurer of the Long Point Region Conservation Authority. If you'd come to the podium, excuse me, to present the 30-day notice to affected municipalities respecting the 2019 draft LPRCA budget. A reminder to Ms. Maxwell, your presentation is 10 minutes, and at the 9-minute mark, I will indicate to you that you have 1 minute left. You may proceed. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair Columbus, Mayor Chop, and the other councillors and staff. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. Thank you. So up there, some information about what we do and the vision. And our mission is to providing services in partnership to protect, enhance, and restore a healthy watershed. On the board, there are 11 directors, and from Norfolk County, there are 4 director positions, and 50% of the weighted vote for the budget approval is for Norfolk. So this is some of our business groupings and what we do. We have the watershed planning and technical services. Under there, we have the development, interference, and alteration regulations, technical support for land use planning, technical studies where we review floodplain mapping and provide the hazard line mapping and sub-watershed plans. We also have the watershed flood control services, flood forecasting, warning, water control structures. And with the water control structures, there's 13 structures, 10 dams, and 8 of them are in Norfolk County: Bacchus, Brook, Deer Creek, Hay Creek, Lehman, Sutton, Teeterville, and Victoria. And the other 2 are Norwich and Rock Mills. And the 3 water control structures, there's Big Creek Watergate, Little Lake, there's a weir, and at Waterford Pond, there's a Watergate. So just some more areas. We have the Healthy Watershed Services. Under there, we have the technical support. We have the watershed low water response, surface and groundwater quality monitoring, source protection planning. And then we have private forest land management with our private property tree planting programs, Trees for Roads, and we also host at our office the Algan Alice program. So then we have the Bacchus Heritage and Education Services. There we have the Bacchus Heritage Site and a Conservation Education Center. We have environmental and heritage education programs offered at that area. Conservation parks, we have 5 public campgrounds, including Bacchus, Deer Creek, Haldeman, Norfolk, Waterford, and there is seasonal and short stay camping available in day use. We also have our public forest and conservation land management area. We own just approximately 11,000 acres, and we actually have sustainable forest management of approximately 7,400 acres of that, so that's considered working forest. Natural heritage woodlands of 1,145 acres. And we also have parkettes and trails that the public can enjoy that we also maintain. And then we have the Lee Brown Waterfall Management Area of approximately 800 acres, and that is for hunting opportunities. So our operating budget is just under $4.2 million, and we have that's a 2.7% increase, or $109,000 on the operating expenses. And for that, our largest expense is our salaries and wages, and that is actually I'm going to get to that, but for our full-time equivalents, we're year over year we're at 41.8, and CPI was at about 2.2% in September year over year, and built into the budget is a 1.75% pay increase for the pay grid for CPI. So just covering some of the revenue areas, we have our non-levy revenue supporting the operating budget of $2.5 million, which is just over 60% of the total revenue required. We have our operating grant, which has been static for many years from MNRF, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, of $68,240. And then the municipal levy, we have $1.6 million asked in this budget, and that's 38% of the total revenue required for operations. So for the capital budget, the total expenditures in the budget is $878,350, and that's an increase of $186,700 or 27% over the 2018 budget. So for the capital projects, there's many sources of revenue for those, and on the municipal side, the levy is $387,350. We also have one special capital levy to Norfolk County for $48,100, and that is for updating flood and erosion hazard information and risk assessment for the Norfolk County. This is the National Disaster Mitigation Project, and it's actually over 2 years, and the total project's about $234,000, and Norfolk County share is $48,100 for each year, so a total of $96,200. So the goal of this is to help with the development approval, flood damage reduction, and help with the emergency response planning. It will provide design information so individuals won't have to do specific design for their different applications. So we have applied for the funding, but it is still pending. We don't have confirmation yet. The other areas that we have sources of funds for the capital is from the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure, WECI. That's through Ministry of Natural Resources again. And funding we're going to be applying for will be $95,000, and that goes towards dam studies. Also, we have 3 capital projects. I mentioned the one with the special levy, but there's also 2 other projects that we have applied for funding through the National Disaster Mitigation Program. And then we have reserve funds for specific projects of $203,000. So just to summarize, the increase for the municipal levy for the 2019 budget is 3.8%, or $72,879. Our operating levy increase is 3.46, and our capital levy increase is 5.18, and there's a slight typo there. That should be 19,100 or 5.18. So this slide just is a summary of the breakdown for the municipal levy for all the municipalities within the watershed. Norfolk has the largest portion. You can see there the second line down. The total is $1,049,886. Thank you. And the next page is just a summary of our consolidated budget compared to prior years. And really the point here is just showing that the overall levy increase is 3.8%. And then on the next slide, it's just showing our operating budget. And you can see on the far 2 right columns, it shows which, there's some departments that use no levy, and then you can also see which departments contribute to the bottom line, and then corporate services uses those surpluses. So we balanced the budget for the year. So then just the last slide is a summary of Norfolk County's levy charges for the past 5 years, including the draft budget for 2019. And as I said, the amount is just under $1,050,000. That's for the draft budget 2019.
Okay, ready for questions? Questions to the deputation? Don't see any hands up. Thank you, Judy. And need a mover and a seconder to accept the deputation of Ms. Judy Maxwell of the LPRCA, Councilor Rabbits, and Councilor Huffman. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Judy. We'll move to our next deputation. It is by Mr. Doug Moyart. He's representing the Delhi Travelers Minor Hockey Association, and his subject is with respect to junior hockey, ice times, and fees. Doug, welcome to council chambers. You have 10 minutes, and I'll inform you when you have 1 minute left. Right. Things playing games there. Are there too many on? No, there's not too many on. It's probably the batteries are, oh, there it is now.
Madam Mayor, fellow councilors. My name is Doug Moyart. I'm here representing the Delhi Travelers junior hockey team and the Delhi Minor Hockey Association. And I can say I speak for pretty well all the minor hockey and youth groups in Norfolk County. My concern is the rising cost of ice time for both junior and minor hockey in Norfolk County. Presently, we have 6 minor hockey organizations: Delhi, Langton, Norfolk Girls, Port Dover, Simcoe, and Waterford. Norfolk County has 2 junior teams left competing in Delhi and Port Dover. We recently lost our Simcoe team who couldn't afford to operate anymore. All our organizations are run by over 300 volunteers through all the communities, well over 100 coaches, managers, and trainers are involved. And again, these are all volunteer people that help provide organized programming for over 1,000 kids. The cost to register a kid for minor hockey in Norfolk County now is about $550. It has reached a point where only wealthy children can play. Again, in September, if you got 2 or 3 kids that got to sign up for minor hockey, you're going to be looking at over $1,000 plus equipment, tournament fees, so on and so forth. What I'm asking Norfolk County for is to potentially freeze the cost of ice time or potentially lower the cost of ice time for at least 2 years. I'm requesting this just so the minor hockey associations have a chance to level out. I'm sure some of you have read in the media that recently Port Dover, Simcoe, and Waterford are presently converging their minor hockey associations because of poor attendance, basically, lower registration levels. Some of that are demographics. Youth registration has gone down in the county, youth population has gone down. But again, most of it is cost effectiveness. I think we can manage our arenas a little bit better. I have had correspondence with Mr. Cridland already and some of the ice time issues that we face in Delhi. I'm sure they are similar for all the rinks in Norfolk County. Some of the problems we have for fundraising, in Delhi in particular, we've ran an annual fish fries, our primary fundraiser, again, all run by volunteers. Our primary fundraiser costs us $1,600 to rent the arena, basically $1,600 with HST included. Now we have to carry another $300 insurance policy. It's just not doable. We can't make any money at it. And it's at the point now where we can't rent the arena. We've been doing it for 25 years. It's a community center. I participated in the building of that arena back in the mid-'80s when our other arena was almost condemned. All I could say, it was built for the community, and it's at the stage now where members of the community can no longer afford to use it. It sits empty for 6 months out of the year. A $2.5 million building. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I think we could utilize that building a lot better. And like, we got 6 rinks in Norfolk County. There's a lot of proponents here for the hub in the future, but who's going to rent these arenas 10 years down the road? You want to build a twin pad rink in Simcoe, you're not going to have anybody here to rent it. I've been active in hockey for pretty well 45 years. I've been involved with youth organizations in Delhi, in the inline league, coached every level of minor hockey, played at pretty well every level. I was a youth officer at Sprucedale Youth Center for over 30 years, and I really got a good handle on what causes some of the problems with our youth today. I really do. Major part of it, Delhi's got one of the highest youth poverty rates in Hold'em and Norfolk, so kids can't afford to play. And if it can't be accessible for even middle-of-the-road kids to play hockey anymore, like, I do believe it's part of the county because if we don't save them, they're falling through the cracks. Norfolk County is that last social network that can catch these kids before they get into drugs. Vandalism rates, we see it every day. I read in Victoria, Simcoe Panorama, so on and so forth, mailboxes in the western end of the county. It's just, you read about it every week. And what happens is that kids become disenfranchised. Well, they know that they can't play hockey, they can't afford to go. And that stems through self-esteem issues, social anxiety issues, all this stuff you hear about these kids that are mounting on them now. Well, it's only going to get worse unless we can intervene, at least give kids an opportunity. Child obesity rates are going through the roof. Diabetic rates are going through the roof. You're going to have a massive population increase in 10 years of diabetes at 30 years old to 40 years old. The health costs are going to be enormous. And what we're trying to do is prevent that stuff. And I could say as a kid, there's nothing prouder than throwing on that team jacket when you're 10 years old. And maybe you just might not break that window in the arena when all the boys and all that testosterone from 10 to 14 starts cranking up. We've all seen it. Kids are kids. I don't like to say it's just boys, but anyway, I've dealt with boys my whole life, so I kind of got a good handle on that stuff. But my whole idea is that user fees, we talk cost of return fees, okay? I hear the word subsidization, and we're not subsidizing the kids at this rate. We're investing in our kids. There's a big difference. And I really get upset when I hear subsidization because if we don't invest in these kids now, you're going to be paying long-term social damage down the road, 10, 15 years down the road, because that one kid that falls through the crack could be lacing that one joint with fentanyl that could be going to your grandchild. That's just the way it works. Kids fall off the tracks, there's social problems all the way through. And I can't emphasize enough that we have to intervene as a county. You're going to hear the argument, well, cost return, we need cost return. Oxford County pays this much, Brant pays that much, Haldeman pays this much for their ice time fees. I really don't care what everybody else pays. I worry about our kids. Maybe we can be innovative. Maybe we can be the first municipality to lower ice time fees in Ontario. We can be leaders, we can be progressive. Because you got to understand, it's also an economic thing. For every 15 kids that we put on the ice, that's one more team that books 2 hours ice time a week, game and a practice. So you're going to be generating revenue for that money invested. You get 15 kids, you're going to generate 2 more hours a week, 8 hours a month. At just over $100 an hour, you're going to get a cost return off your investment. That's kind of my point. It's not money just kind of thrown away. But anyway, that's pretty well all I got to say. A couple other things. I've talked to Chris Garwood. I'm on the Delhi Chamber of Commerce since I retired, representing the minor hockey organizations, and I don't think there's any real factual way to track the economic tourism. Like I just know in Delhi, we used to run our old timers tournament. We bring in 12 teams. We'd be ordering pizzas from local pizza places. All the local restaurants would be hopping because you got 12 teams coming in with wives. 10, 15 guys on the team, you know, you can kind of do the math. They bring their wives, their kids. There was a lot of economic activity in our town. The Golden Garden tournaments used to be run here in Simcoe. Used to bring in over 20 teams. The economic spin-off, these people spending money in the restaurants, buying locally, that all helps, and it helps for tourism. And I don't think that's documented or really well communicated throughout the community. Like the sports tourism, and I'm a hockey guy, but that goes for soccer, that goes for baseball, that goes for everything. So there is an investment, there is going to be a cost return on some of the money, and I really don't think that the user fees should be placed, you can't get cost return on the backs of children. I'm sorry, there's got to be a better way. If we got to keep these arenas running on the backs of children, you're not going to have any arenas to fill. And one other thing I've got a little pet peeve with, our Blue Line Club, they call it the special occasion room, I think it is, special events room in the arena. The county's now charging us $50 a night to use that. We used to run a Blue Line Club for our junior games. The liquor board decided to double the rate fees from $75 to $150. We now have to pay an extra $50 for user fees to the county. Needless to say, we haven't ran a Blue Line Club all year. And that was a source of revenue for us. It would bring people in. You know, you'd have your regular hockey guys coming in every Friday night to watch the game, and that doesn't happen anymore.
1 minute left, Doug.
Oh, thank you. And another thing I was just going to ask, if that could be waived. We want to stay in the arena for a fish fry. What I'm requesting council to do, if we can lower that to $1,000 to make it economical for us. We're merging up like everybody else. Minor hockey with a fish fry. We used to do it alone. We're going to now work with minor hockey to, again, create more economic activity, get more manpower, more volunteers involved, and hopefully everybody makes a little more money to keep our youth groups going. So, any questions? That's
Okay, you done?
Chair. Yeah.
Okay. Questions to Mr. Boyart? Councillor Huffman first.
I don't so much as have any questions as thank you. You're in my wheelhouse here.
Okay.
First off, I'd like to let you know, you'll appreciate this. I survived a juvie Silver Stick weekend this week with
Oh,
my
there you
18-year-old
go.
son, and I'm still standing. So
Yes.
that's good. You're right. We don't subsidize our children. We invest in our children. You have to have a societal community engagement in order for people to continue to be engaged in their community and have social capital. It's vital. I do have a big issue with the costs of our ice rental. I have a big issue with the fact that we have service clubs who are giving back all of their money to their community, but then we're charging them full rates to rent the ice for a skate-a-thon. Why? I don't know. And then we are nickel and diming them to pay for little meeting rooms and things like that, while we're charging them full prime rates for ice rental. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. It does not make sense, and like you said, we have buildings that are sitting there empty. You know, I know some of the arenas are used for lacrosse in the summer, for
Yep.
box lacrosse. Some are not. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming forward and talking about some of these things. And another issue is exactly, you'll have arenas sitting empty for all kinds of things. But the other point too is that we do have revenue that can be built into the arenas. I have no idea right now who's running the booths at Norfolk County arenas and why they're not open and when they are open. And I've been to all kinds of different counties with their arenas, and they're talking about Canada's food guide and different food choices available. And then you go in and you've got a tournament going on and we don't have our booths open.
It's common.
It's embarrassing.
Minor
So-
hockey nights in Delhi, it's the same thing. It's a hit and miss.
Yeah.
And again, that's not my end of things.
No, but
I'm not
it
here
all
to-
melds together, right?
Well, it's
Because,
revenue generating.
I mean, when you're
Yeah.
looking at charging for one thing and then not being able to get revenue from another point, and where we have service clubs and, you know, minor hockey associations and ball associations who are having to pay full fees to try and raise money to keep fees down, but then we just said this in the break room, I think it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
It's
So
very discouraging for our volunteers,
Extremely.
and you got to remember, volunteerism is just because I've been so active over the years, that's passed on from generation to generation. I go to minor hockey night in Delhi, and I probably coached half the coaches now. But once you lose that generation of volunteers, it's not just for hockey. Like I'm just talking in general, because everybody branches out when they get older and does this kind of stuff instead of being active hands-on with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But once you lose that generation, it's not passed on, it's going to be gone, and you won't have another one to build that next generation up. Sorry, yeah.
No, that's fine, and I
Yeah.
think this is, we're really at a point in time when we're looking at the hub, and we saw the interest in health and wellness and active living and active transportation, and these are all things that I seriously think that Norfolk County as a whole, we need to get moving on and be very proactive and be a leader in our community. So,
Councillor
thank you.
Huffman, did you have a question?
No.
I asked for questions.
I did ask a question at the beginning.
I didn't hear it, sorry. I'm going to Councillor Martin first.
My apologies, no question, just can I ask council a question after I preamble?
Well, let's wait till the deputation sits down, okay? Is
Sure.
that okay?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Van Pasten.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the delegation, now, asking for lower rates, that's the easy one. Have you got any concrete thoughts on how we can get better use of these facilities? Like, the more events we have, the lower the rate can be on all of them. Now, have you got any thoughts on that?
Actually, I just started communicating with Mr. Cridlin on some possible ways we can generate different revenue and utilize, I still call it the Blue Line Room, the special occasion room, I guess is the official name of it. I think there's ways we can utilize that a little bit better, where we can generate revenue and provide better services. Like the hockey moms run their tyke tournament, they sell pizza up there. Well, the first 50 pieces of pizza goes to the county. We make $1 a piece. And it's defeating, and people are going, well, what are we doing this for? Like, why are we even bothering? And people start giving up. So I think there are ways to generate in these things, and utilization of services. Every community is different. And in Norfolk County, you can't really compare it to Oakville just because of the vastness of the county. The issues in Langton are much different than the issues in Delhi, which are much different than obviously the arena issues in Simcoe. We got a room upstairs. We don't have a weight room in town. And anyway, there's things we can build on. And again, I've been talking to Mr. Cridlin how we can kind of utilize our facilities better. We're just trying to get that communication going. But right now, it's the ice time is my biggest concern, because without the kids, there's no sense in having the arenas, because between the juniors and Delhi minor hockey, we probably book 75-80% of the ice time, and the figure skating club. I never meant it, but anyway, they're on board with this too.
Further questions to the deputation? Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Van Passen actually just asked one of the questions that I wanted to ask, which was, did you have any ideas, not only in terms of increasing usage, though, but also in terms of efficiencies that you, as a citizen that are out at these facilities, might see? For me, that's been an invaluable source of information so far, where money is being wasted.
Not so much wasted, I don't think, it's just, like, the waste of the arenas, I get the overhead cost, but, and I had a little chat conversation with our councilor already on this. There was a time when the Delhi Arena had a chance, they put a proposal in, somebody wanted to put solar panels, because the whole, half of the arena faces south, and they wanted to put solar panels on the roof, which would have generated revenue. And the last council turned it down for various reasons. I heard a lot of it was kind of, I don't want to say it was spite, but they were against the green energy bill for the province, and we're going to dig our heels in and we're not going to support anything. But meanwhile, we might have lost some revenue that the arena could have generated. Rates in the summertime, I mean, we had Delhi Inline Hockey League, we had over 400 kids registered at one time, which is bigger than Delhi Minor Hockey System was, just because we were charging $30 a kid to play. And the rates were down. So the next 2 years later, and that's going back to the old township, but, well, you guys are doing really well, so we're not going to keep it at $25 an hour, we're going to take it to 50. Well, within 3 years, the league folded up. A Rusty Devils hockey tournament ran for 3 days. We booked 3 days worth of ice time. Too expensive to run. We can't make a nickel at it. We got to charge almost $1,000 a team now to play.
And so you mentioned earlier, I just want to clarify as well, I mean, I wish you had been here last week when we approved the user fee increases without any justification. You would agree then that that applies to other sports as well that the county puts on?
Absolutely, you know, and I don't mean to say I'm a hockey guy, I'm here on behalf of the hockey system, but yeah, youth issues are, it's countywide, obviously. In the summertime, demographics have changed a lot, I understand that, but I just look in our town, we used to have 3 tennis courts. They were all on Grand Dairy property, and for some reason the school board thought it was better to make them in the parking lots for the kids, so you can't play tennis in Delhi, we don't have a tennis court. We don't have a gym, we don't have a weight room, so lack of opportunity. We have a fantastic soccer organization, and they've got a special agreement with the county on how they make it work in Delhi, because, anyway, that's for another day, but there are ideas out there.
So it's better, essentially what you believe as well, that it's better to keep prices down and give everybody an equal opportunity to be able to come and play as opposed to your upper
And otherwise, it's a
income
law of
brackets.
diminishing returns. If you want to generate more revenue, you're going to charge more, you're going to lose customers.
I agree. Thank you very much, sir, for coming
Thank you.
today.
Any further questions? Any? Thank you, Mr. Moyer, for
Thank
coming
you.
forward and sharing your concerns about ice time rates. And as you heard from the mayor, the ice rates for this coming season are going to still be worked on, because that was not passed with the user fees that were passed a week or 2 ago. Okay. Thank you. Need a mover and a seconder to accept the deputation of Mr. Moyer. Councilor Geisens moves it and seconded by the mayor. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Ms. Martin, you had a question for staff?
No, that's okay. Mayor Chop touched on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or questions to staff on this item? This time? No? Yes, Councilor Huffman?
Through the chair to Mr. Cridlin. Could you answer the question in regards to the booths at the Norfolk County Arenas?
Certainly can. Through the chair to Councillor Huffman. It's historically, there's been a lot of different ways. At one time, it used to be in-house staffing.
Yep.
It has been contracted out, and most of the booths now are contracted out. It's a tough thing to fill, because a lot of companies come in expecting to make some pretty good dollars off of this, and I think it's just the sale volume isn't there. So staff are always trying to look even for community groups that want to come in, but they are difficult positions to fill. And I think it leads back to Mr. Moyner's point that the arenas aren't packed with the people that they used to be. So on a Friday night when the place was full, you'd sell more volumes of goods, you would make more money. And it's just, people are pretty cautious in getting into agreements with this, because it's not a big money maker anymore on the food side.
Okay, so in terms of it not being a moneymaker is one thing, but what about revisiting the piece that we had with the Norfolk Association for Community Living.
Through the chair to the councillor. Yeah, staff have been in conversations. It was about a year ago that we signed a contract, maybe a year and a half ago, with the company that does most of our arenas now. And at that time, there wasn't any interest from any outside groups that we had contacted. Staff have actually contemplated about going back with in-house staff, so at least there is a concession booth and it's staffed and there's ability to serve people. But again, we would have to, it would be extra staffing and cost to cover that staffing, so probably part of a larger report if we were going to do that.
Okay. All right, yeah, but I guess the point too is that then there are part-time jobs available for youth in Norfolk County if we were hiring people, in-house staff to do jobs, et cetera. So it could be a win-win. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Councillor Martin.
I would like to pose the question, through the chair to Mr. Kidlin, I would like to pose the question that I would also like to see staff consider sporting teams as a fundraiser get into those booths. I don't know what that looks like or what costs are associated with that, but I would really like to see staff investigate that as an option for these teams to be able to pay for some of their ice time.
Mr. Cridlin,
Do you-
comment?
Through the chair to the councillor. Yes, I mean, staff are, had some really good conversations with Mr. Moyner and a few others. We do meet with all of our users on a yearly basis, and we do kick around a lot of these ideas. So what, as times change, staff are 100% on board if we can get the volunteer or the community involved. And yeah, if a minor hockey association would say, we want to take over the Langton concession for this year, staff would be more than happy to have something like that. The concession is being used. It's a win-win in that case.
Okay, and then lastly, just as a general comment, we're hearing that the arenas are not packed the way they used to be, which may be very true, but as we give consideration to this deputation today, and especially moving forward when we have conversations about the hub, I would like to say that it's worth it for our community to invest in 2 teams. I don't care if that's 2 teams or versus compared to previous years with 20 teams. Recreation is important for a variety of reasons, which we know, and maybe these teams aren't turning out, or from what it sounds like, based off of these fees. So I would just like council to give that consideration moving forward. It doesn't mean it's the way it has to be forever and ever and ever, these lower users. Thanks.
Okay. Mayor Chop.
Through the chair to Mr. Cridlin, I guess for myself as well, I know that we've approved the user fees for these other areas, but I still think it's important for council moving forward over the next year to look at areas where perhaps the services are redundant and or competing with the private sector. I'll say that again. And looking at offering, it's a unique situation where not only can people not afford it necessarily, but in some areas, like out in St. Williams, they don't even have the opportunity because they don't have activities out there for their youth to do. So I think that we need to start looking at what we're going to offer those more remote areas, Port Rowan, St. Williams, as opposed to, offering services that perhaps aren't necessarily needed in some of our more populated areas.
Through the chair to worship. Yes, like one recent success we've had is a walking group in the Port Rowan Community Center. And that had been talked about, and I think not the issue for staff is we do need the community input, because staff any program we're going to offer, I think, has to have a need within the community. And that was a case where we had been asked about for a walking group. We were able to connect, I believe it was the companies with Stonebridge, and they offer the services there for staff. So, I mean, staff are 100% on board. I think it would just come down to more meetings with these community groups and what folks want. Staff are a little hesitant to let's say, open St. Williams up for something if there isn't the need, because that's where staff can, we'll basically get clipped that, why do you offer that? So we definitely need community input on what communities want and then cater to it. We've always, lately too, I get an email today, we have pickleball in Port Dover now as well. So those are 2 things that user groups have came to us and staff have made that happen.
Okay, I mean, the pickleball in Port Dover for seniors at Dover Coast, when pickleball is offered, I'm not sure that I equate that as the same as offering sports, what I'm getting at for kids out in St. Williams and Port Rowan. And for myself, from the few times that I've been out there, I've spoken with school teachers out there that are very clearly saying that there is definitely a need for programs for kids to do out in Port Rowan and out in St. Williams.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Rabbits?
I have through the chair, I have a motion if it is in order.
Madam Deputy Clerk? Is it- Yes.
We've had an ask to reduce the fish fry from $1,600 to a figure of $1,000, and I would like to move a motion to that effect.
Madam Clerk?
Through the chair, the only thing I would suggest, and perhaps allow Bill to step in if needed, is that add something to the effect of where that reduction in fees would come from. So shortly you're going to hear a report on the municipal grants to others, and perhaps that's some wording that you could put in that reduction, that $600 reduced could come from that account.
Just to clarify, that is for which ice surface is that? All of them across the county?
Point of clarification would be for the annual fish fry put on by the Delhi Travelers. I would also like to add that I would like the funds to come through the, I'm going to say slush fund for the grants. I know what you're referring to. You're going to be able to wordsmith that better than I. And failing that, I would like to place that, if the monies are not there, onto our levy.
Councilor Van Pasten? We have a
Thank you,
motion on the
Mr.
floor.
Chairman. I don't know if I'm offering an opinion or offering a bit of advice, but yeah, be careful just automatically reacting to a delegation when I think we're talking more, I got the sense more we're talking about a big picture item, because, you know, you grant a one-off thing for one group. Next week, we will have the Lions from Dover, from Simcoe, from Waterford. They'll all be here asking for the same thing. I got the sense that Mr. Moyer's presentation was more about the big picture. It's not just the one thing of a discounted rate for a one-time event. It's finding better uses, looking at the big picture. How can we get more kids involved if you spread out the cost and more events? And, you know, I'm not really sure I could support a one-off motion for this one particular request today, because I know it will just lead to more. There is a process in place that we have. We're going to approve that later on the grants. Every other organization will come to you with the same problems. We got to fix the source of the problem, not just throw a little money at one and hope it'll go away. We got to find the root of it and make it better all the way across the county, not just at this one event.
Further discussion? So, I need a seconder to Councilor Rabbit's motion. Yes, you may.
Through the chair to my fellow councilors and her worship, I do realize that this may appear as if it is a gut reaction to an impassioned deposition, but in fact, I would be thrilled if we were able to fill this council chambers with service clubs asking for our help. I believe that this is in the big picture. I need to take a brave first step, and sometimes that means waiving a fee and organizing an annual event that will raise revenues and draw interest to a declining sport and a declining participation rate in something that is very crucial to the health and well-being of our populace. I realize that this does look like something that wasn't prepared for in advance, but we've had what I consider to be a reasonable ask, and if the outcome, the worst case scenario, is more following in Mr. Moyer's footsteps, I am prepared to entertain those deputations as well. Thank you.
Further discussion on this. Did I have a seconder? Yeah, Councilor Geison's the seconder. Now we open the floor for discussion. Go to Mayor Martin. And,
Mayor Martin.
then Mayor Chop, sorry.
This is next.
Is that foreshadowing or what?
Go ahead.
I have to agree with Councillor Van Passen. I think that, we had this opportunity. I'm a little bit frustrated right now with the user fees. When we asked specifically at the CIC meeting to send staff back to try to find areas where there could be savings, to see if we can make it so we can't reduce fees, and instead now we're looking at doing it on a one-off basis. It should be about equity and fairness across the board in Norfolk, not just because one club comes forward. It should be the same for all clubs, and I agree there is a systemic problem that is going on, and we need to address that, and we need to fix it for all of the clubs moving forward. So I would not be in support of the motion either.
I see we have 3 microphones on, and perhaps that's affecting our transmission. Councilor Van Passen, you've got yours on too. I saw you looking at it, but yeah. Now we'll move over to Councilor Taylor.
I'd like to put an amendment out to the motion. If I could go through the chair to Mr. Cridlin to amend it for the actual, Councilor Rabbit said $1,600 to the effect of $1,600. I'd like the motion to read the actual cost of renting out the blue line room or the arena.
Okay, it's got
If
that's got to go
Yeah,
through
sorry,
to Mr. Cridlin.
through to Mr.
Okay?
Cridlin.
Your question goes to Mr. Cridlin?
Yeah. Through the chair, I actually, and we had some really good discussions with Doug. I do have the agreement here for the travelers for that night. And basically, it is $1,421.52. And just for councils, that's for 16 hours rental of the arena itself at $745. And classified as extra cost fees are the garbage cans, the tables, the chairs, the cleanup, a tax of $163 anyways. It comes out to $1,421.52. And Mr. Moyer, I believe, is asking for that to be lowered to $1,000. So I think our difference is $421.52 if I've answered the councillor's question.
Go ahead, Councilor Taylor.
Can you repeat that number one more time to me?
Through the chair to the council, $1,421.52 is what it costs to rent the arena for the day for the Travelers Fish Fry, county cost. And Mr. Moyer obviously would like that lowered. His request is to have that a flat $1,000, and that would be a waiving portion of the fee of $421.52.
So I would like the amendment to read a reduction of $421.52.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Councilor Rabbit.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, I would agree with that amendment. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so the motion now reads. Yes, Councilor Geis, are you okay with that amendment? Okay, so I'm going to get the clerk here to read it so everybody can understand it.
Through the chair, it's been moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Geisens that staff be directed to reduce the annual Delhi Fish Fry fee from $1,421.52 to $1,000, and that the reduction be paid from the council grants to others budget.
Everybody understand that? Okay, the motion's on the floor, moved by Councilor Rabbit, seconded by Councilor Geisens. So I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor? Okay, I thought we had a lot of discussion already, but, okay, on the amendment, you mean? Sure. Okay, discussion on the amendment. Yes, Councilor Martin.
I would agree with Councillor Van Passen. I do want to help this deputation. I want to help all of the not-for-profit agencies in Norfolk County, all of the recreational teams in Norfolk County. But I think as new council coming in with a big mandate, it is our responsibility to look at the bigger picture and fix this for all of these individuals who haven't come forward here today to speak to us. And additionally, this was a big driver behind my conversation a few weeks prior on the user fees. And I did make an emphasis on some of the licensing Port Dover related things because a few other councillors, including Councillor Huffman, had spoke about rec fees and ice time fees and whatnot, and I agreed with her. So my apologies if it didn't seem that to you all that this was as a priority for me. These fees were a priority, but they are. And so I'm slightly disheartened that now these user fees have gone back and have been passed, and we're not going to be addressing them for 2019. They are going to be increased for the most part. They're not all coming back to us. So I find it difficult to go forward on a smaller scale here and just amend or allow for this one change to be made, when I really would like to ask council to think bigger and look bigger, and let's fix this problem for all of Norfolk, not just with one motion here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Huffman.
I just want to say that I agree with Councillor Martin. I, again, am seeing this as a big picture. This was a campaign issue. This was something that many of the residents in Ward 7 felt very strongly about. I've been approached by several different service clubs, and in terms of looking at equity of fees, I certainly do support everything in regards to that deputation, but I don't want to do, I can't support a one-off. I want this to be a systemic overhaul of how we look at our fees for recreational purposes and for youth engagement.
Okay. Anything further from anyone? No. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor of Councillor Rabbit's motion? 2 in favor. Those opposed? That is lost. Thank you, Mr. Moyer, for coming forward. We'll move on to reports. We do have 2 reports that are going to be held in open session. And the first one is the 2019 municipal grants. So, I will go to Mr. Cridlin. You're the person. Oh, okay, Clark. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Mr. Hoskin, your turn at the microphone.
Was on, okay.
There you go.
All right, so just presenting the municipal grant report to you. Council policy on the municipal grants establishes a $1 per capita grant budget, which amounts to about $64,000 a year. This year we received 23 grant applications amounting to over $124,000 in requests. So our Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board subcommittee had to review them and come up with some recommendations. Also part of the grant policy, we have 5 organizations that automatically receive $2,000 per year, and they're listed on page 45 there. And the grant policy also allows for a $500 bursary for each high school in Norfolk County. So that's another $2,500 as well. So that reduces the budget a bit. So on page 48 of your agenda, you'll see all of the requests for the various organizations there itemized, and then the recommendations in the right-hand column that the advisory board put forward, which amounts to $48,000 request. And then if you add on the grandparented organizations as well as the bursaries, it brings the total grants recommended up to $60,500, which leaves an unallocated amount in the budget of $3,500, which you as council can use through the rest of the year if you so choose to provide a grant to other organizations. Page 49 outlines what the various grant recipients intended to use the funding for. These are summarized. We didn't attach every grant application. And then also the advisory board subcommittee put forward a couple of minor adjustments to the policy, which they were hoping that council would support. One being an amendment to the policy that requires applicants to submit an accounting of any previous grant disbursements to be eligible for future consideration. And they also thought that it was a good idea to raise awareness of the program and recommended that the grant recipients attend a future meeting of council for the presentation of checks. So anyway, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have and turn it over to you.
You're ready for questions. Thank you. Start with Councillor Martin and then Huff.
Thank you very much. Through the chair through to the deputation. I understand that the tourism, the TDAB board does this, but I wondered what the criteria was for deciding how the money is distributed. I see some of the values are distributed in full and others are not. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. If you turn to page 51 of your agenda under the grant policy, you'll see the qualification of applicants, so some of the criteria around the actual organizations. And then under the evaluation of applications, it talks a bit about that they need to be programs, events, or services to a large number of children, youth, seniors, volunteers, that type of thing. It also has a bit to do with what perhaps any economic spin-off that they may be providing to the community, evidence of financial need, and also any additional material that they may provide in terms of either a business plan or a description of their event or their program. So we have a wide range of of applicants, everything from healthcare-related organizations right through to music clubs and sports organizations. The advisory board committee basically looks at each one of them carefully, kind of tries to compare them to the criteria that's in the policy, and wherever possible, tries to divvy out the money as much as they can. Okay.
Okay. And then we have Councillor Huffman.
Through the chair to the deputation to Clark. Couple questions. One, I understand the 5 groups that are grandfathered in, or I guess it's grandparented in to be correct. Why those 5? Is that because of their historical connection to Norfolk County and?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Huffman, when the grant policy was updated several years ago, when it was brought before council, a number of councillors from various wards kind of said, hey, they'd like to have a certain organization grandparented into the policy. Okay. So it was basically at the request of previous council members.
Okay, okay. And now, a couple other questions. So, I do have a question in regards to Haldeman Norfolk Glow, which I believe is in terms of the LGBTQ youth in in Norfolk County, well, Haldeman and Norfolk. And they didn't receive, they were recommended to receive no other funding. So that was, I was interested as to why. I don't know, are you allowed to specifically address why, or?
I can talk, I can respond to Mr. Chair.
Yes, we'll wait for his answer.
In whatever way I can. In many cases, if you look at the criteria, it does require that the organization exist as an entity.
Okay.
And I believe in that case, there wasn't any evidence that the organization had been established. So,
okay.
So if the proponents of this program, for example, had applied through an organization that exists, then they may have been eligible, but there wasn't a particular organization, say, with a bank account and insurance and that type of things that we could see demonstrated in the application.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe then going forward, because I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that obviously they're listed down as an organization, so maybe almost like another kind of, they wouldn't even be included as an organization. So I'm just saying, it's a little confusing, that's all. And the other, there's 2 other pieces in here. One is, and I can see that the Waterford Tricentenary asked for $5,000 for their 50th anniversary. Now that's a fairly large ask. Is it pretty typical that would be, that typically they would get that full 5,000 recommendation? Or is that just because of the importance of the event, or?
Yeah, through the chair, if I recall this particular application, the 50th anniversary, they were bringing in some high-level
yes.
celebrity skaters.
Yes, there is.
And often, I wish I could attach the 8,900 pages of applications to to this, but
I would love that actually. But anyhow,
well, that's possible. But I'd say through the chair that often the supporting material from these organizations is really helpful to the committee because they were able to make the case for it.
Right.
And so the committee chose to give them the full
you are
amount.
correct. There is an extremely high level Canadian skater coming in, because I do recall the event is not being held in Waterford, which it's being held in Simcoe at Talbot Arena. so there was a little bit of community kerfluffle about that. And